Hello and welcome back to the channel and another video about the construction of phase 2 of Heaton Lodge Junction. Now we've got a bit of a ballasting special this week because for the last few months I have been searching ways that I can speed ballast all the track that I've got, and I think I've totted it up and there's got to be at least 2 kilometers, so that's probably, I don't know, 1.2 miles of track. But I'm going to be here till I've got white hair if I don't find a way of doing it. So I think I've come up with the solution, so keep watching. Also, I'm going to show you progress because there's been a lot of progress on the track laying front on the layout, which is actually just the other side of this wall. And talking of progress, I've noticed in the comments 2 or 3 people, one person in particular, that keeps asking the same question over and over again. Is it you that does all the work down here? Well, let me tell you, it is just me that does all the work down here. Nobody comes into the basement for days at a time. I certainly haven't got an army of elves that descend here overnight and do all the work that I purport to do. It is only me, but of course I do have help from people like Tim Horn of Tim Horn Baseboards that does the big buildings. But no, it's only me that does the work. In fact, it's funny actually because I've got to tell you, I went up to Cumbria on Thursday last week because some of you will know I stay in a cottage up there a lot. And I was meant to stay until Sunday, and I got up there on Thursday. By Friday morning, I was just like a cat on a hot tin roof because I knew there was just so much to do. So I got back in the car, drove back down here, and spent Friday, Saturday, and Sunday doing all the track laying that you're just about to see. So there we go. That's what we're covering today. Just a bit of progress, bit of ballasting. Hope you enjoy it, and let's get going again. So, ladies and gents, this is what I have been beavering away doing for the last 3 days. And just like one of those old schoolmasters with his ruler on the blackboard, I'm just going to point out while the camera's on the tripod, because you can get a good kind of view of everything, just what I've been doing. So, as most of you know, there's 4 tracks, 4 main lines on Heaton Lodge Junction. The 2 that presented the biggest problems were these 2 here. Tracks 1 and 2, the inner tracks, simply because the gradient, which I've talked about in previous videos, which is over there, is too steep. And it meant we got loads of wheels spinning on locomotives, loads of black, horrible track, which caused all sorts of problems with the automation and everything else. So it was essential that I kind of smoothed the gradient out. And I've done this by starting the gradient much earlier. So it's obviously starting here, and it climbs on a 1 in 100, so 1 centimetre every metre, obviously. My maths teacher would be proud of me. And it goes up here, and then obviously I've only done up till just, you can see where it ends, and then it's going to join with the much steeper part of the gradient further on over there, but it won't be much steeper, it'll be a lot less steep. So that's that, and you can probably tell as well, it was tempting to make a really straight bit of double track, but what I've purposely done is made it much more smooth and curving with some S-bends because it just looks much prettier on the eye. So that's that. Now, just to remind you of the other side, phase 1, and that clip of the 2 coal trains passing each other, the Class 56s, which is popping up on your screen now. You'll remember they can cross from tracks 1 and 2, which again, this is 1 and 2, and they can cross onto tracks 3 and 4. And this is where they basically return. So tracks 3 and 4 here, join with 1, 2 here, 1 and 2 here rather, and so they can come back to each other at this particular point. And then here, this double junction, this is where the 2 different routes on tracks 3 and 4, because tracks 3 and 4, the outer 2 tracks, again, just to remind you, they can take 2 different routes. They can take a route, the outer route, which is on the left, which is over the viaduct and the river, and they can take an inner route, which is on the dive under, where they literally dive under, and then they rejoin here. So that's just that. So there's 2 double junctions. And then we've got another junction here, which again, I've just told you about, where tracks 1 and 2 can join 3 and 4 again. And we've got one more just in front of the camera, which is just basically a crossover and the start for the fiddle yard for track 1 here. So if you can understand all that, you might need to replay it again. If you're wondering what the masking tape is, that was a great idea from somebody in the comments to cover up all these ugly holes. And I think when the ballast is on top, as he rightly said, basically what I'll have then is just, well, hopefully the ballast won't drop down the holes because the masking tape will be as hard as the glue, so it should be fine. So that is basically, I just wanted to give you a panoramic view, and I'm going to take you off the tripod and just show you up close what I've done. So again, from the other side, we've got the gradient here. Keep repeating myself, don't I? Gradient here, first sign of madness. And again, the lovely S-bend. Glad I did that, and all the nice track work there. So yeah, it's all going to be wired as yet. Unfortunately, I have to drill these horrible big holes. Some of you will notice there's a few sleepers missing in each of the picot points. I've used picot points, but I am now taking advice, or took somebody's advice from a few months ago that I read about, where I've just sawed out or clipped out using a pair of clippers that horrible box which Picot put in to hide the spring, because you don't need the spring with DCC because obviously the motors do the work. So I'll be putting some new sleepers in there, back in there. But yeah, that looks good to me. Really pleased with that. This big gap here with all the holes still in that I've yet to cover up. There's going to be a town, there's going to be a petrol station, all sorts of stuff here. And yeah, that is looking really good. I'm going to crack on with the gradient this afternoon, which is, again, taking this gradient. You can see the difference in height on board number 50. And that's going to meet up with the gradient a bit further round, probably meet up around there somewhere anyway. And that'll make it much, much less hard work for all those hellion diesels. So there we go. So let's talk ballasting. It's one of those jobs which none of us modelers enjoy. In fact, yeah, I can't think of anybody that I've spoken to that does enjoy it. And I, for one, spent most of lockdown in COVID down in this basement, pushing little bits of grit or ballast off the tops of sleepers into the void between the sleepers, and it drove me stark raving bonkers. It really did. I had so much to do. But that is nothing compared to the amount of ballasting that I've got to do on this extension, phase 2. There's about 10 times more track. So it's really, in all seriousness, it's been worrying me now for some time, trying to find a way of speed ballasting whilst maintaining a really realistic effect. So after a lot of research, I think I found it, and it uses a combination of tactics. But one of them is utilizing a product or a couple of products from a little company that's run by a guy called James Walters of Make It Miniature. And he came up with this solution, and it is a solution of attaching a little bit of, it's just basically like an implement to the end of a 240 volt normal vacuum cleaner attachment. And it has the effect of lifting off the grit from the top of the sleepers whilst leaving the majority of it alone. So it has promise. I'm going to show you now how I used it and how I've really got to grips with it now. So let me just take you there. I'm also going to show you a different solution to using PVA glue. It may not be for everybody, but it certainly worked for me. So let's go and have a look at how I've got on. Okay, before we get into talking about the ingredients you can see on the baseboard in front of you, I am going to focus on this one here, because this is one of these ballast spreaders, which we've all seen. They come in double O gauge, probably N gauge as well, although I've not seen one, and certainly O gauge, which this is an example here. They're done by a few companies. I like this one in particular. Railway Laser Lines, of course, I use a lot of their stuff, no affiliation. But what I do like especially is it's got two little brushes underneath, which help, don't work 100%, but they certainly help to get the ballast off the tops of the sleepers. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Now, as for ballast itself, I am using ballast from Geoscenics, which again is a little company which specialise in doing lots of different things in 2 different or 3 different gauges. I do like their weathered ballast in O gauge, which is here. I usually use Woodland Scenics. I did at the other side, but I'm going to try this Geoscenics ballast because I have tried just in the last couple of days a length of track which came out really well. But let's move on to the kit you get from Make It Miniature when you go for their O gauge ballast suction kit. And basically you just get 2 things from them. You can see the price. Again, it's called Make It Miniature. It's popping up on your screen, and you basically get a nozzle like this. This is obviously an O gauge, but it comes in double O gauge as well. And you get this little implement here which screws on the top of a random Coke bottle. So you need a Coke bottle as well as the 2 implements you can get from Make It Miniature. You also need one of these, which is, I think James on the website gives a link to something on Amazon where you can buy. It's basically from a mini vacuum cleaner accessory set, but it's this bit you need because this attaches to the nozzle of something like, I'm using a Henry vacuum cleaner, but there's lots of different ones available, obviously. But this is what you need. And it's already attached, obviously, here, because I've got 2 of them, to the end of this 10mm PVC tube. And that is the other thing you need. Again, the ingredients are popping up on your screen that you need for this successful speed ballasting experiment. But yeah, it's PVC pipe. It's the little 2 bits from Make It Miniature, and you need one of these from a mini vacuum cleaner accessory kit. You also need, of course, a random Coke bottle. I wouldn't use a water bottle because, as James said on his own video, they're a bit thin, the plastic, whereas because these are carbonated, the plastic is a bit more robust. You'll see why that's relevant later. Now, the other thing I use is simply this track colour. This is by Phoenix Precision Paints, but you can use any type of track colour. And I've already painted some wooden sleeper track with the Precision Paints paint. Now, I see so many layouts and they're beautifully ballasted, but nobody's bothered to paint the sleepers, and there's still that horrible black plastic. So please paint your sleepers before you ballast anything. Ballast again by Geoscenics, and of course the spreader by, in my case, Railway Laser Lines, only because I do like, as I said, those 2 brushes which really help with getting the ballast off the top of the sleepers. So I'll pan out, we'll go and put some ballast in the ballast spreader, and let's see how we get on. Now, I'm sure you've seen this demonstrated in so many other YouTube videos, but there's no harm in going through it again. So basically, what I'm going to do is just fill this ballast spreader with ballast. I'm just going to pour I think that's probably about enough. And then I find the easiest way is just to pull it along quite gently using both hands. And you can see that it actually does quite a good job. Oh, I've got a hole in the ballast there, not to worry. I'm going to go back the other way because I'm going to use the brushes, excuse the screeching, just to get more of those bits of ballast off the top of the sleepers. But you can still see there is an awful lot of ballast still left on top of these sleepers, which of course is the main issue. So again, these brushes, they do help, no doubt about it. I'll go over it again. Same in double O as it is for O gauge. But you can see, I'm just going to take this off the tripod and just show you. If we just close up, we can see that there is loads of little bits of grit and ballast on the tops of these sleepers. And this is the issue. See, I've got a hole there that I didn't cover up with masking tape, but not to worry. And this is the issue, and it's miles of track that I've got to get these bits of grit off and push them in between the sleepers, which I'm not going to be able to do without this second gadget, which I'm just going to put together now. Right, so let's put these little bits together that we get from Make It Miniature. Now, we've also got, as you can see, this adapter, which again comes from Amazon. There's a link on the website for Make It Miniature that James recommends to get one of these products, which again is just part of a, a mini vacuum cleaner accessory kit. What I've done, however, is I've used gaffer tape, as you can see, just to close these gaps, these gaps around here, because that just pulls the suction through here. We don't want the suction coming through these holes. I don't know why they're there in the first place. We want it coming through or from the nozzle. So I've just used a bit of gaffer tape to do that, and I've pushed it on to a length of PVC pipe, 10mm inside diameter, which just pushes on to the end of this nozzle here. So the other end goes onto this bit here. So if we just push that on there, if I can get it on, it's always quite a tight fit. If you can't get it on, once again, you can just use boiled water, just put in the end in boiling water. And then I've already attached this other implement, which you get from Make It Miniature, which is the nozzle, and I've pushed it onto another length of PVC pipe, and I've just used a bit of gaffer tape to secure it, and that goes onto this bit here. So we just push this on here, if I can do. Oh, go on. There we go. So that's on there. And then this just screws on to the top of a Coke bottle or any carbonated bottle of a similar kind of size. And this is just to save the ballast that obviously does get sucked up from the tops of these sleepers. So that is basically it. The only other thing we need to do is connect this to, I'm using a Henry Hoover, which has got, one second, a nozzle like this, and that's just going to go onto the end like so. It just pushes onto the end, and that is our implement. It's a little bit unwieldy, and that's one of the things against it. But again, I think what I did earlier is just used a clamp, a long clamp, clamped it to the bottom just so it stands upright, but you can let it move around. It is a bit unwieldy, but it's well worthwhile. So let's just see how it works. Okay, so let's turn on the vac and see how we get on. So how I've found it works best, it's got two guides and you're just going to run it along the tops. And you can hear it sucking up. Look at that. It sucked up the ballast from the tops of the sleepers and left the ballast in between exactly where it's meant to be. Now you keep having to, well, I keep doing it 2 or 3 times over. You can hear it being sucked up. The excess ballast goes into the Coke bottle. Whoopsie daisy. And I just keep going over it 3 or 4 times. Now this would have taken me probably 15 minutes, but it's done in a matter of seconds, probably less than a minute. What you can do, I'm going to turn this off now. Just keep going over it again. If you've still got the odd bit on there, but that is almost perfect. Right, let me turn this off. And I feel like punching the air, to be honest, because that is absolutely superb. Let me just take you off the camera, or let me take you off the tripod, and let's just have a look close up, because you can see there's the odd bit on there, but most of it is completely disappeared. And that track, apart from the hole in the middle that I didn't fill in, looks superb. So there we go. Absolutely brilliant. Now, let me just show you something else. Put you back up there. The nozzle here, which I found, sometimes works better, and this is double O, as this comes in double O as well as O gauge. But I filed the two guides just maybe an extra couple of millimeters just to bring the nozzle just a little bit closer to the sleepers. It still worked well. It worked in double O absolutely superbly straight out of the box. The O gauge one, as I've just said, I filed in a little bit so it drops a little bit more into the void and it pulls up the ballast from the top of the sleepers, and it works an absolute dream. And of course now we can just unscrew from the Coke bottle the adapter, and we can just pour in there the ballast, which you can see is left. So that works really, really well. And I'm going to time next week, if I've got time to spare, which I'm sure I will have from the track lane, just to diversify. I'm going to try and do the whole of this baseboard, which you can see here, as fast as possible to try and make it yeah, just to see how fast we can do it. But if I can do one of these boards in a couple of hours, I will be over the moon. So that is really good. So the final stage is, how do we stick all this ballast down? Now the traditional way, of course, is just to mix PVA glue with water, 50-50 mix. Mix it all up and spray it through one of these, garden sprayer, £1.75 from B&Q. The first one, of course, has got the traditional couple of drops of fairy liquid in the water, and you spray that on first, and it just makes the PVA sink into the ballast better. But this is the alternative, and this was an idea by Mike Buick of Revolution Trains. Thanks, Mike, who posted something about this a few weeks ago. So the only thing against it is it's quite expensive. I think this tub of 5 litres cost about £30, but is very, very good at doing the job of PVA a little bit quicker. But more importantly, it doesn't leave that kind of plasticky sheen on top. It dries absolutely matte. So basically, how it works is, again, I still use, even though I've been using this concrete floor sealer, and you can get it from Floor Seal online, even though you just spray in or spray the water with a little bit of fairy liquid on the ballast first, as so. Just give it a little bit of a good soaking. And then the concrete floor sealer is next. And I find it does help it actually sink in just the same as it does with PVA. You need to be able to see this stuff on tops of the sleepers like you can see now. And it soaks in, and then it only takes about 24 hours and it's all completely dry. And it does work really well, and it doesn't give you that plasticky sheen which you get with PVA glue. So I'm just going to bring you over to one I did just last week using this concrete floor sealer, and we'll see what results we got. So this is one I did earlier, and this is dried rock solid. Again, it's done with that concrete floor sealing liquid, and it works really well. This again is the Geoscenics ballast. It's all dried now. It only took overnight to dry. I've also used a different shade of their ballast on some concrete track here, which again looks really, really good. This is dried rock solid with that floor sealing stuff, the concrete floor sealing stuff I've just shown you. So it looks really, really good. So what I might do is just give it a dusting, because I've not painted the concrete sleeper track first. Should have done that, because normally what I do is just give it a dusting of track colour, but I mean just a dusting to give the impression of kind of brake dust or whatever. Not done that on this, but I will be doing it on the rest of these tracks over here. So yeah, instead of PVA, it's an alternative. It's expensive, it costs a bit more, but you do get a slightly better result, and it's up to you as to whether you think it's worthwhile. But I'm really pleased with that track there, and that has just used the Make It Miniature vacuum ballast spreader, the Railway Laser Lines spreader to put the ballast on in the first place, and of course the floor sealer to stick it all down. And I'm really pleased with that. If I can get all this done and all that done, sorry about the mess, in a few weeks, I will be extremely happy. So there we are, our ballast spreading video for this week. So that's it for this week, folks. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that ballasting was, well, I hope it proves to be of some use to you, especially those of you that are making a new layout. So thanks again for watching. Hope you have a great weekend. Please like and subscribe as ever. It makes a big difference, and I'll see you next week.